everyone. Welcome to Think and Resist, conversations about feminism and peace. This podcast is a series that explores how feminism can redefine security and address some of the most pressing challenges of our time. My name is Allison Pitlack, and I work in WILPF's disarmament program.
I'm Genevieve Riccaboni, and I work in WILPF's Women, Peace, and Security program.
I'm Zarin Hamid. I'm in the Women, Peace, and Security program.
This was just sort of a spontaneous episode, but Zarin, Genevieve, and I really felt that after the experience of talking with all of our guests and unpacking all of these issues, that we wanted to just offer our listeners and maybe also for ourselves a short wrap up episode. So all we're going to talk about for the next 10 to 12 minutes is a little bit of a review of some of what we've heard, a little think about if we met our goals and objectives, and then maybe a little bit of looking forward and what we see is coming up next, both for WILPF, but also for feminism more broadly.
I think overall, what we wanted to get out of this podcast was an opportunity to move outside of the usual panel discussions and reports and documentation, and have conversations with people who are either affected or directly trying to make change on the issues that we care about and that we cover in these episodes. And so I think we met that, and I think we've had along the way some really interesting insight come through from the different speakers, different guests that we've had. So I think we met it through that as well.
I think it's good to have this kind of reflection. In my opinion, that sort of reflection and learning is really a part of feminist work praxis. So I think it's good to do. I thought that this was a really rewarding experience, and it was nice to convene people on different topics that relate to our work, but also just to have, I think, a little bit more open and frank discussions. And I also liked that we had guests from a variety of regions and countries, both where we actually have WILPF members and sections, but also ones where we don't or are a little bit less active.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I also found that I remember thinking at the time when we were speaking with Shobha, I've known Shobha for so many years, but I don't think I've ever heard her speak in such detail and so candidly about the national situation, because I'm always encountering her in these international arms trade treaty or other, disarmament conferences where you're very focused on the meeting agenda and how as civil society we're reacting and responding to that. When when the idea of a podcast, I think it was Maria who first suggested it to us, like in a random call about what do we want to do with this joint resource between the WPS and disarmament programs. I think what we liked about it was this opportunity to showcase how these two areas of work are connected already, and by lifting up examples of it in action and not just talking about it or talking around it, but by demonstrating it. I don't know, maybe if it was always accessible language for everybody, maybe it got jargony, maybe it didn't. Do you have a favorite episode or something that you really came away that was really fresh and surprising information for you?
I thought about this and I was going to pick, but then I was like, I don't think I do have a favorite episode, because each of the episodes kind of brought in different elements that even if I knew more on one topic than another, each of the episodes I think brought in some interesting facts and insights that I hadn't heard before or hadn't considered as well as I did while I was listening to the podcast episode.
I guess it's like trying to choose a favorite child. You're not really supposed to.
I also don't know if I have a favorite, but I will say, and maybe I'm saying this because it's fresh in my mind, but I really enjoyed my conversations with Deanne, Samira, and Inna for episode 6. I think that the issue related to civil society, civic space, ensuring that civic space is protected, that people are able to freely and safely do whatever advocacy and activism they want to do is so important. And I think it relates a lot to so many of the other themes of the other episodes. I have been thinking a lot about, I think it was Inna's reflection. I asked in the episode, why is strong civil society and social movements, why is this fundamental to peace? And her answer was you can answer that question by flipping it, of why are passive or suppressed populations necessary in order for war to happen. And I think that related a lot as well to some of the content in the masculinities episode and the conversations that we had with Anthony and with Jennifer, because there's so many layers there in terms of like the interpersonal, the familial level, the social level, the community level. And that also relates to many of the different dynamics that we talked about in the Women Human Rights Defenders episode. That's really critical to feminist analysis and root cause analysis. And I really liked how our guests in those two episodes, but really all of them, got into some of that. And I thought it was super nuanced.
I think nuanced is a great word because, when we designed the series and we wanted to look at the intersection of these two areas of work by coming at them through different thematic areas or areas of focus, like we did one per episode. I think, when we started to like peel back the layers of that, um, each and every one that we did is so nuanced. I think some of the episodes were very new topics to me. Like I haven't been following as closely our work on the environment, or the women human rights defenders was like a great episode for me. Like it's a term that I've also heard used a lot, but I didn't even really know like the background of why that term is what it is and what the meaning of having it. There's just like I feel like especially in episode 6 all the other topics really come together. Like even though the focus was on women human rights defenders, like they talk about masculinities, they talk about climate and environmental issues, they dig into some of the other things, digital insecurity and online harassment and how that's impacting their political participation in the work that they do. And I felt like it was a nice, and maybe we didn't plan it this way or know that this would happen, or maybe you both did, but I feel like it kind of all came sort of full circle.
Well, I mean, the issue of women human rights defenders or human rights defenders at large is that all of these different things that we work on that we're concerned with, they all come into play in their experiences and also in the risks that they face. So I think that's also why all of these things kind of ended up accidentally converging as a final in the final episode. And I was also going to say that I think this was a great opportunity for conversations with people who care about these issues outside of the usual spaces we tend to have these conversations. So like outside of UN events or conferences and all these other things that happen, that ends up taking up our attention and our time, and that's where we tend to do our advocacy in. So I think this was just a bit refreshing actually to be able to engage with the folks that we would work with in other spaces.
So, okay, if we do a season 2 or we were to keep going, what would we maybe want to talk about that we didn't cover in season 1?
I think maybe it would be interesting to pull in some of the issues and topics that we cover in this season more specific to country contexts. So, because that's also how we work. So I think that would be a possible something to look into and explore. But I think also would be super useful for just people interested in current events and also on the different on these different topics. How do they look? What do they look like in real time, in reality, affecting real people?
I also, we had that one episode planned on spending, like military spending versus spending on peace or on gender equality, WPS, and we never, for various reasons, got that done. But I still feel like that would be a great topic to dig into a little bit more as well in a future episode. I think there were a couple other specific points too that we just didn't have the bandwidth to kind of get to.
I would be really interested in like all of these topics. To what you were saying earlier, Allison, they're really big, and there's a lot to do, but there's also a lot to talk about. And I think there's also more like deeper we can go, I think, in a lot of the themes that we already were exploring in this series. So for example, with climate, I think we could go even more. Like I wanted to hear more about the work on the impacts of militarism and military activity on the environment, and then also on how it's being underreported or not even reported at all, because I think Doug was talking about this concept of like military exceptionalism, quote unquote. But going even more into that, like I think we could have talked about that for many hours, and I want to hear more about the research that CIOBS is doing and other organizations that are working on this issue, including WILPF increasingly. like I would be curious to interview maybe more WILPF members, and to also hear about like one thing that I think feminist analysis brings to talking about armed conflict and violence is saying that, you know, it's not a binary. It's not conflict or not conflict. In fact, violence exists on a spectrum, and there are many different layers of violence. And I think that came out a lot in the Women Human Rights Defenders episode, for example.
Well, thank you to all of our listeners for coming on this journey with us. From my perspective, it has really been a journey from first thinking about how to make a podcast, then to what we should focus on, to now recording this final wrap up episode with my fantastic co hosts. And yeah, so the series, it might be done, but of course, the work, if anything is a takeaway message from this, the work is far from over. What's coming up and is a really big event for WILPF is our next Congress. Our Congresses usually happen every 3 years, and while they are a decision making meeting for our governance bodies, they're also traditionally have been a space and a place where WILPFers from around the world can come together to participate in thematic and very focused discussions, exchange, and share about their work. And the focus is going to be making connections, environment, social justice, and demilitarization for feminist peace. So very, very in keeping with the theme of this podcast series. How can you stay involved?
You can get involved as a member of WILPF by either signing up with a national section or a national group, or through the WILPF International Secretariat at wilpf.org. Check if WILPF is already present in your country, and if not, join our movement as an international member.
I think I would also just point listeners, maybe as one last plug, to our e-newsletters, which are coming out from the WPS program, Peace Women, as well as from the Disarmament program, Reaching Critical Will, and from WILPF Secretariat more centrally. They are sent out usually on a monthly basis and are just chock full of recapping recent activities, looking ahead to upcoming activities, spotlighting the work of our sections and partners around the world, new resources, etc., etc., etc. So if you do want to follow along in a substantive way on what's coming up and what's happening, definitely those are good resources to go to.
Thanks so much again for coming with us on this journey, and to stay connected with us, you can visit our website, www.wilpf.org. That's WILPF.org. And we're available on all social media platforms at WILPF or WILPF.international. So we look forward to staying in touch, and thanks for being along with us on this journey to redefine security and work towards a future of feminist peace. This podcast is a collaboration of WILPF's Disarmament Program and Women, Peace and Security Program. It is hosted by Allison Pitlack, Genevieve Riccoboni, and Zarin Hamid. It is recorded, edited, and produced by Palante Consulting. The song you hear at the beginning of each episode is Youth Group by Picnic Lightning, and all other music is created by Cameron Navarro. Thank you to all of our guests and to all of you listeners. We'll see you next time.
What a team.